Perfect. All right, so we're gonna get kicked off here. I still don't know if this actually starts at 2:45 or 2:50, but we'll say we're starting. Anyway, I'm Dave Whalen, and before we kick off, I just wanted to try something I've never done in the panel, which is read a short passage, because that comes across as very, very intelligent. So it's the year 2038. The word flavor has fallen into disuse. Sugar is the new cigarettes, and we've managed to replace salt with healthy plants. We live in a society in which we eat fruit grown using genetics. We drink synthetic wine, scramble eggs that do not come from chickens, grill meat that was not taken from animals, and roast fish that never saw the sea. So that's from a piece that some of the panelists here probably read, 2018 piece in Fast Company by Marius Robles, who goes on to use such interesting phrases as urban farmer scientists, ultra-personalization, food consumption tax agency, digital food database, and flavor predictive algorithm. Somehow it doesn't mention drone delivery or voice computing, but I'm sure that's in there implicitly. So none of that article is true, but all of it is possible, and some of it's happening right now, and some of my panelists are working on some things that touch on it. And it's very exciting. It's kind of where things are coming in this intersection of food and technology and innovation that today is about here at Digital Hollywood, and then this panel is about in particular. So I'm super excited to be here. I'm a strategy consultant, entrepreneur based here in Los Angeles. This is my, second or third time moderating a panel here at Digital Hollywood over the past several years. Personally, I've been kind of a foodie my whole life. My father was in food manufacturing. I helped to launch a restaurant in San Francisco many years ago called Foreign Cinema. I've worked in and around nutritional products for years, from post-workout drinks to a ill-fated line of beef jerky. And I've touched on food tech over the past several years as well, from including work in synthetic biology, engineering biology, and kind of the next wave of food tech. And today I'm a co-founder and COO of a digital health and media company that's bringing together amazing media around cooking, nutrition, wellness, coupling it with smart app technology. And I think this is a really exciting time for food. Just the past, really just this past month, so much cool stuff happening. So Beyond Meat went public last week or a couple weeks ago. There's a coffee company in China that is raising a ton of money and is going head-to-head against Starbucks in what is now the largest market for coffee. We've got robots serving coffee and making burgers in San Francisco. We're growing vegetables indoors. We're growing meat in labs. And every day we're dealing with the impact and potential of Amazon Fresh, Whole Foods, and what that means for getting food into people's kitchens and restaurants. So anyway, I'd love for my panelists to introduce themselves really quickly, kind of 2 or 3 minutes. We'd love to hear about your background, what you're working on now, and then what I always like is how you got into this in the first place. How did you get into food? So Alina, we'll start on your end.
Hi everyone, I'm Alina Furman, and I am the founder and the CEO and the chef of Supalina. I came to food in a strange way, through cancer actually. I'm a lifelong journalist, and in 2009 was diagnosed with breast cancer. Decided not to go and do the traditional treatments and figure out a way to heal myself. So I did what I do best. I started interviewing scientists, pathologists, doctors, alternative medicine doctors, every expert in the world, taking notes, recording, transcribing, and trying to figure out what my path would be. And in the process, figure out a way how to blend 3 ancient medicines like Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and naturopathy in a bowl of healing soup that could actually be a supplement in a soup form. So that's how Supalina was born. I started in 2013. That's when the company actually started. And so now it's almost 6 years, like 5.5 years. I've been the chief soupy and blending different spices, herbs, and vegetables, occasional mushrooms and legumes into my vegan creations and healing people in LA area. So that's my story.
Perfect, thank you. Chef Charity Morgan?
Hi, I'm Chef Charity Morgan, and I'm best known for being a chef, a plant-based chef for NFL players, where I come from a Le Cordon Bleu background, but that was 15 years ago, and it was 2 years ago where I felt that there's just another way, and I wanted to help my husband, who is an NFL player as well, to transform into a plant-based diet, but to not feel like it was just agonizing and just a new way of showing him how you can eat by using plants. And it grew to me cooking for a football team and several celebrities after that. And the work I'm doing now is just stuff like this, just continuing education and showing people that you can survive off of a plant-based diet. And if I can have 320 linebackers, 320-pound linebackers and defensive tackles doing it, then you can do it too.
Perfect. So Justin, before Justin introduces himself, so a few weeks ago I was at a panel at UCLA where Sam Polk, who's the founder and CEO of Every Table, was supposed to be speaking, and Justin was there as a surprise replacement. And so I was going to talk to Sam today about how I'd seen Justin speak, and then of course Justin is a surprise replacement again today. So you're really good at this, Justin. So no pressure.
I don't.
Maybe he's that actually.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a shame Sam can't be here because he's a great speaker, and to hear his story is really awesome. But I'll try and do as best I can. I'm the director of business development for Every Table, as well as the head of growth for our latest vertical that we've launched, which is smart fridges in the office workplace. Every Table is we make fresh, healthy, affordable meals with a focus on underserved communities. And we work off of a bit of a variable pricing model. So our affluent community locations, meals may go for $8 to $9, and those same meals in underserved community locations go for $5 to $6. And that was really what drew me in. I was a career-long entrepreneur, and I was working in Santa Monica probably about 2 years ago, and basically asked the office manager, hey, where's a great place to eat? And she said, there's this quick place on the promenade called Every Table. And I said, okay, walk over. And I walked in, and there's these prepared meals, and I immediately thought, I'm in an airport and I don't want airport food. But grabbed the Jamaican jerk chicken, took it back to my desk, heated it up in the microwave, and was just blown away after the first bite. And so my VC cap went on immediately, and I said, I got to reach out to this company and see who started this and what they're up to. And so I just cold reached out to Sam, and 2 years later, here I am. Just it's been an awesome experience, and just really, really good. You hear about social impact, but it's like this doing good or doing well by doing good, and this is really just living and breathing it. So it's been great.
Awesome, thank you. So these names are getting harder as we go this direction, but so Andreas Werfel?
Not bad. Well done. Yeah, my name is Andreas. I'm here today to represent NX Food. NX Food is the food innovation program of Metro. Metro is a Germany-based, European-based international wholesaler. Many of you might be familiar with the Costco's cash and carry model. That's essentially what Metro cash and carry stores do in 35 countries, 700 stores, about 21 million small business customers, mostly restaurant owners, mostly caterers, hotel operators, small retailers, bodegas, kiosks, and so forth. Again, in 35 countries in Europe, Russia, India, China, Japan, and obviously a couple more. NX Food is the branded program that we at Metro have established to help up-and-coming food makers, food and beverage innovators succeed. It's essentially a program that allows you to get all the resources that we can muster to help you commercialize, to help you become part of a community that helps you improve the way you're doing business, the way you're connecting into others that can help you do business. And we're helping on the commercialization end as well by placing you in some of our stores. And if all checks, if performance is win-win, you actually are getting a permanent placement with Metro stores and some of our partners, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment.
Perfect. Just from an innovation standpoint, you've gone from music to telecom to food, right? So you've kind of gone through multiple rounds of disruption, all driven by maybe by Amazon and Google.
We were just joking that about 10 years ago I was speaking here, and it was a completely different environment. I was on the media side, the content side, while I were here. It does make sense, though. Actually, I've grown up as a family that as part of a family that owns restaurants. Gotcha. So front of house, back of house is not completely foreign to me. That's good.
Perfect. All right, and Paul Bryan.
It's actually Powell.
Powell, all right. See, I was trying so hard.
It's all right. We were just having a conversation earlier about how I have a Scandinavian-esque name, but I'm not Scandinavian. I think there's somebody else in the room that might have a similar background. Thank you for moderating this panel. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think that to your point, and this is the kind of conference or forum where you have people from so many different walks that have so many different niche interests, and is that still working? Yeah, it is. Something. Okay. Where you can jump from the media side to the food side. I've done very much the same myself. I went to film school and was a filmmaker for a number of years, produced television shows. On one of those shows, I was capturing the lives of commercial fishermen in the Gulf of Mexico, and I was underwater for 4 months, 130 feet down, filming these guys that were sustainably harvesting fish on a scuba tank. And I spent so much time with these fish, and I just kind of fell in love and thought, wouldn't it be great to get more sustainable fish to people? Started a seafood company, Wild Fish Direct. That was about 5 years ago. And since then, I've been on both sides doing media and as a sustainable seafood supplier, trying to help sustain our wild fish populations and feed a growing population with responsibly harvested and socially responsible seafood. So I think it's great to be here in a place where I could maybe do a media panel in the morning and a food panel in the afternoon, and have the same people at both. So it's more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. And Victor does an amazing job with this conference and kind of pulling together the diversity. And we do have sort of a mix of, I think everyone has touched on media and food in some way here on the panel, which is awesome. And so I actually want to kind of start with that. And we talked about internationalization. You talked about kind of global needs, growing needs, and one of the things that we're all looking at is kind of as the world's population grows, but also as the demographics change, how do we leverage food and then technology to help not only serve that population, but help them flourish? That's a good positive way to start this thing off. Who wants to? You want to dive in? Well, you talk about the seafood side of it.
Sure. So seafood is a dinosaur industry. I can't think of any industry or any protein that you could possibly get where there's more fraud, miscommunication, and confusion. We were just talking earlier about how often do you go out to a restaurant, order chicken, and actually end up with ostrich or something. In the seafood industry, that happens all the time. There is a tremendous amount of opacity. So technology is really helping to transform the space in terms of knowledge, in terms of helping people understand and make smarter choices. But it's also transforming the fish that are on our plates and the number of plates that there can be fish on. So, for instance, in the wild population of seafood, our wild stocks are maxed out. 90% of our wild fish are either at maximum sustainable yield or beyond that. So where is the growing world population going to get their protein from? Seafood protein, the demand for it worldwide is increasing at a really fast rate. And so we look to technology for those solutions. And so right now, one of the most interesting things is the influx of seafood technology into the United States. There's two companies, between the two of them, they're spending close to $1 billion to bring aquaculture, sustainable aquaculture that does not have harmful impacts to the environment, that's not using antibiotics, to the United States. And so we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. It's all, you can run the range from vessel monitoring to help us catch illegal fishermen, to help us see what's actually coming out of the oceans, to see how much bycatch there is. If you look at improvements, we can just go to last week where it was announced that bumblebee, starkist, and chicken of the sea were all named as, using the dolphin safe label, but actually they're sourcing tuna from boats that are also harvesting a high amount of dolphins. So, right now between the technology and communication and the actual technology that's out in the world is enabling us to be able to preserve our wild fisheries and also feed a growing population.
Great. So is NX, is that the kind of investments NX is making, or where are they focusing?
So if you look at NX Food, and that's our vantage point into food innovation, if you look at the supply chain, we're a wholesaler. So downstream, we're looking into making these new products available to restaurateurs that hopefully put that on the menu for you and I to order. But upstream, in terms of technology, we are probably not the best source to judge technology, right? To judge next generation technology, to get that next generation of food and beverage product into our stores. But we understand the importance of it. We just didn't want to start adopting that learning curve or dabbling into something we don't understand. So what we did instead is we have a four sort of circle approach to the program itself, and that implies our approach to technology. The outer circle is research. Before we started the program, we wanted to make sure we understand the marketplace, the players, what matters, who is moving forward, what's the dynamics of this new generation food and beverage environment. The next circle in is really becoming part of an ecosystem. And within that ecosystem of universities we're partnering with and other tech companies in this space, we let them essentially tell us what is important, right? And let them leverage their understanding of R&D and technology, because we didn't think we'd be the best folks to adopt to all this on our own and reinvent it. The third circle in is really community building. That means let's bring in startups and young entrepreneurs in that space that have used technology to build out new products, new food products and beverage products, and create a community with them that enables communication. And at this point, we have over 800 companies around the world in the food and beverage space that we are interacting with, and and that's most important, let them interact with each other, right? It becomes sort of a node of nodes system where everybody has access to everyone else's knowledge. And then thirdly, that inner piece is really where we're probably best at all of this, and that is the commercialization piece, the piece where we're saying, all right, we'll give you store space, We'll give you access to partners that have access to consumers, ultimately to test your product and make sure that it actually meets real consumer demand. So upstream, we're looking to others to help us to get to that downstream piece. How can we help commercialize that next generation of food and beverages?
So I think every table operates on a very unique model within the restaurant business. And so while there's significant innovation, there's not like this groundbreaking technology that goes into what we do. I think it's coming. But from an innovative standpoint, we operate on a central commissary kitchen model. So we have 8 locations in greater Los Angeles area. And that central kitchen model allows us to leverage buying power and economies of scale in order to get our unit economics down on a per meal basis. So the 3 main factors that go into that are basically labor, packaging, and raw ingredient costs. And so the second kind of benefit that we have is that there's just been a complete lack of investment in infrastructure in underserved communities. So since our real estate footprint is much smaller in these communities, both affluent and underserved, we're dealing with a much lower real estate cost. So that is reflected in our pricing. And so basically finding all of these optimizations or efficiencies all the way down that both logistics, supply chain, et cetera, allows us to continue selling these fresh, healthy, affordable meals for ridiculously low prices, in the $5 to $6 range. And there's a funny story. Sam, whenever he was starting off the company, everyone from the restaurant or food business basically just was like, what you're trying to do is crazy, it's impossible. And I basically like to say, well, it took us a little bit of time and $10 million, but we figured it out. And so now since we figured it out at the restaurant brick and mortar level, which is just ridiculously hard in my opinion, that's somewhat of an outsider coming in to the restaurant business, we've now gotten the unit economics and that kind of process down to the point where we're finding these ancillary opportunities and really have become this omni-channel brand or restaurant where we've leveraged all of our individual restaurants as hubs or hub pickup model for our delivery service. And so we're now able to offer a subscription delivery service to underserved communities that were never marketed to, that never had a DoorDash or Postmates even available to them, or if they did, it was very high minimums. And to DoorDash's credit, they opened up that delivery route and logistic capability because they understood that it basically just was not fair to based on household average income, that they weren't going to serve a particular area. And so, launching a subscription delivery service that has never been available to these underserved communities. We've also launched our smart fridge business, which basically is another bolt-on vertical for us where we're placing these smart fridges in offices and workplaces. And now these corporate workplaces that are paying attention to workplace productivity, workplace healthcare investment, are understanding that no longer can you place the traditional vending machine with your Snickers and Fritos, et cetera. And now allowing this option that has all this technology integrated into it that allows us to virtually manage and monitor through the cloud. So it's these types of efficiencies and small wins that all go back to that unit economic of making the cost of that meal as low as possible so we can continue to grow the brand in the underserved communities and really just continue to put our money where our mouth is.
Awesome. So Charity, I know you're working at a very different scale, but tell me about the technology that is in there, whether it's how you reach people or you've got your media team here. So, again, it's media technology that gets the word out, but would love to hear how you fit that into your world.
I use technology in 2 ways. The very simplest ways is my husband texts me saying, add number 90 to your meal plan. And number 2 is using my Instagram as a platform of showing people how plant-based meals can look Not so much like beating this this veganism activism over their heads, because it's a different, it's just a different generation, and I'm just sitting back and watching people and how they react to me when I tell them that I'm plant-based, and they automatically start putting up walls of saying, "You're not going to talk to me about this veganism stuff, are you?" So I realized that that approach wasn't working. So for me, the approach is to meet people where they're at and to talk to them and see, okay, what are you trying to achieve? Why do you want to look more into plant-based? Is it for health? Is it for energy? What do you want to know? And just educating people along the way. And for me, it's just the lack of that people just don't understand. They don't understand that, you can get protein from plants. And just teaching them that you can get flavor and you can eat all the same things that you once did love with getting those plant-based options.
Got it.
So I look at technology actually for the sake of transparency, because I feel that we're now at a very different stage in our society where we have so much information that we don't know what to do with all the information. And so, but the good thing about it is that we are aware, and we're evolving, and we're looking at all these bits of information that we get through social media, through whatever leftover of the traditional media is out there, whether it's magazines and newspapers and television, fake news, real news, whatever you want to call it, and understand what it is that works for you and what doesn't work for you. On the other hand, we're living in a society that is very sick. So many people have autoimmune diseases, so many people have cancers, our kids are medicated. I was looking at statistics recently that close to 40 to 45% of kids are taking some kind of medications for chronic conditions. That's crazy numbers. Looking at that 60% of adults have autoimmune conditions and cancers, those are the numbers that should not be there. And all those numbers can be eradicated with proper food, and proper nutrition, proper nourishing. And I feel that the technology has to be used in a way to somehow educate the society, the world, all of us, into how to properly give us the support that we all need, and we all need individual support. It's not universal. Everybody has their own condition. Everybody has their own issues that they're working through. And finding that niche that can support you in your healing path. And what I mean by that is that for me personally, for example, when I embarked on my journey in healing cancer, I didn't know what I was doing. I started out cold tofurkey, like I say, and I thought I was eating healthy. I thought, I've never had health issues in my entire life, and embarking on to something, trying to heal something like cancer was a daunting task. But that said, I was able to contain this in my own world. I was able to do this in my home. I was able to do it. I was paranoid. I was, carrying food everywhere with me for years. But then I realized that's stressing me out even more. And what it also gave me a window of understanding is that when you're outside of your environment, it's very hard to sustain whatever healing plan, whatever diet, lifestyle plan, whatever you call it, you have. Because the moment you're on the road, you're traveling, the moment you're outside of your little bubble, how do you sustain it? Where's the support? We don't have that support in restaurants and hotels, airlines, airports, and we are a traveling society. We go everywhere all the time. We're very mobile. We don't have time to cook. We have all of these kits that we are eating bars on the go. Are they good for us? We need to have more of a support system. And what I feel with technology and what I am trying to create with Supalina is create whole food meals that are not just nutritious and wonderful and tasty and full of flavor, but also give you that healing path, that instead of popping supplements here and there, which all of us do, that really don't do a whole lot of good to us because our guts do not process any of those or most of them. That's why when we go to the bathroom, we have the neon pee, is because we can't process all of the supplements that we take. And create the nutritional meals on the go, wherever we are, that we can nourish ourselves and we can support ourselves on our healing paths.
Wow, lot to unpack there for sure. In my world, having gone from nutrition to genomics to media around that, I look at a lot of what you're saying from, how diets are changing to the.
For sure.
You mentioned cancer, and the thing that's striking to me. There was an article in New York Times published something that came from a journal a few months ago that was showing that there's certain obesity-related cancers which have been on the decline for most of the population for the past several years, yet they're growing with millennials. And millennials are now the largest population group. They're the most tech-savvy, except for, of course, the generation after them that's now coming up. My kids, but still,
Z, yeah.
Millennials are tech-savvy, and they're also spending the most money, in general, and certainly spending on health and wellness. And they are the Instagram generation, right? Would love to understand how everyone is kind of looking at that from a standpoint of how do we help create that education, that awareness? What can we do to not only get better food into people's hands and mouths, but ultimately teach them why they should be doing that, why it's good for them, how it can help them extend their lives, live better?
Yeah, so I love this topic because, millennials and Generation Z. And I think that Generation Z is our salvation, honestly. I think that it's a great generation, and I'm very excited about the Generation Z because it's the most eco-conscious generation that's coming up. The kids or the young people and the kids, right, that are growing up in this generation, they want to know the story, they want to know the truth, they really want to understand what you're doing to create a product or a brand or whatever it is you're trying to sell them. They're not interested in big box stores. They're not interested in big brands because that's what millennials were interested in. And Generation Z wants smaller mom and pop stores, smaller brands that have a heart, that have a story, that are eco-conscious, that are aware. And I think that catering to this generation, that's what I'm all about. I love, I think that we shouldn't be selling any product to anybody unless there is a story behind it and there is a real reason for that product to be sold, because that's how we ended up with a sick community of people that is trying to heal from one thing or the other. And I am super excited about the youngsters.
Got it.
So we've taken a somewhat unique approach. If you are in Europe and you take Eurowings, which is Lufthansa's Europe-based domestic airline, we are essentially now offering about 30 new food products to about 2 million Eurowings passengers across 20,000 flights every month. And so what we're doing essentially, looking at a lock-in audience, right? We've all been on planes and we're all hungry and we're like, what am I going to take? And you look at that menu. Well, now actually you're able to order on Eurowings an insect-based nutritional bar. You may not even know what the ingredients are, but ultimately you're taking it, you're hungry, you're locked in, you have not much choice, and you find out, wait a minute, this is not bad at all. And maybe that's one of the ways to sort of, create that next generation of consumers that are saying, all right, I was afraid of it, I didn't understand it, but you know what, my taste buds have said, no, it's fine, it's perfect, it's good. And you know what, it's healthy also. So maybe just through a somewhat more forceful, you got to try this at least once.
Guinea pigs.
Voila, guinea pigs.
No soup, right? We'll give them bugs. No soup, bugs, right?
All right. All joking aside, we've had no complaints. It's doing really well, and people are saying, "All right, wait a minute. I wasn't exposed to it, but now that I understand better what it is, and I've tasted it, sure." And off you go.
I'll comment to the millennials. I actually love the millennials. I thank the millennials. I'm not a millennial, but I'm not. But they're the ones who's driving the market. And if you actually look at the data right now, it is millennials that are driving the market to plant-based. And that's why the plant-based market is a billion-dollar industry right now, is because they're realizing that the consumers are the millennials, and they're the ones who are opting out of the dairy products. They're opting out of the meat products, and they're choosing plant-based. And I find it very interesting, because there was once a time, maybe 3 years ago, I was talking about millennials like they're dumb, they don't know anything, but they're actually like quiet rebels. They understand that their buying power is a lot stronger than, going out there marching, and they're starting to understand that they do have a voice, and that voice is with their dollar. And I compare that to the generations before me. And I talk to my parents and older generations that are sick, and I talk to them about a plant-based way of living, and they're looking at me like, I can't do that. Like, this is the way I've been my whole entire life. They're a lot more stubborn. They're not even willing to even try it. I mean, including people in my family that can be sick. And then you'll talk to a millennial and they're like, oh, you know what, I've been doing a lot of research about this, and I've been seeing it a lot, and I'm willing, just show me a couple ways on how I can start, and I'm willing to do it. And the millennials are grabbing a lot of their content from social media, and that's where all of the information is, and that's where you meet the generation and technology.
Got it. So, Paolo, how do you kind of use that sort of education awareness type thing in the essentially B2B, but you're B2B2C, in that ultimately you're selling a product or moving a product that the consumer is going to demand, right?
Right. So that's actually been a challenge. What's really interesting is I was just at the National Restaurant Association show yesterday, and you were?
Yeah.
All right. No, I didn't see you, man. There was only like 28,000 other people there. It was crazy. And there's a group there called Technomic, right? And they analyze data, and it's they come out with a lot of the analysis that we use in the restaurant industry. And so I remember back when we were starting Wild Fish Direct, and there was all this data that pointed to increased demand for sustainable products. Right, and the specific data said that customers were willing to pay more for that. They're more willing to frequent places that serve sustainable products, all that stuff, right? We've all seen that information. So we jumped in, we targeted healthy, fast casual brands, which was the fastest growing sector of the restaurant industry, which they're all about sustainability, right? So we're like, okay, we're taking these people that want this and these brands that sell this, and we're going to supply them with something that is hard to get. Well, it turns out that one of the interesting things about these sort of surveys is that a lot of people project and they answer the questions as if they're the person they want to be, as opposed to the person that they are. Just because they ordered something and paid more for something that was sustainable one time doesn't mean that's indicative of their behavior. So what we really found was that, okay, all these brands are saying we're selling consciously sourced or responsibly sourced or sustainably sourced products, and then you get in there and you really start picking apart what they're doing, and it's just not what they're doing. And 1 out of 50, maybe, brands was willing to do that. And I'm talking about small scale brands, right? So not your big, huge brands, because the majority of the change is happening on the larger scale brands. They have much bigger assets to protect. They are where the NGOs target their attention. So we've all seen the reports in The Guardian and AP about this or that seafood company that's committing fraud, or slave shrimp being sold at Walmart, Costco, Aldi, and then those brands react like immediately. They have to, right? They're not gonna lose half their stock value overnight. Their investors wouldn't be too happy about that. So So the challenge is that outside of those brands, how do you get people to walk through the door of a restaurant and just even ask, where is this fish from? Or where is this chicken from? Or whatever. People aren't doing it. And so a couple things that we did was first start talking to millennials. So we just started talking to them in a very informal setting and asking them questions and giving them our own surveys and seeing what they would say, figuring we might get more honest feedback. And they're very distrustful of brand statements, bless you, by the way, or salute. And they're distrustful of brands telling them stuff. They also kind of were so confused about some of the information, especially in regards to seafood, that they just threw up their hands. And what's interesting about that is that this year, so the 2018 MSC, which is the Marine Stewardship Council, it's one of the sort of benchmark sustainability ratings and certifications agencies for wild fish in the world. They did a survey, and for the first time in their history, the number of people, the percentage of people that were interested in sustainability had actually decreased. And the reason for that was cited confusion, right? So people don't understand, how do they know what label to believe? How do you know what stamp to believe? It's not a chef's job to sit out there and become an expert on sustainability. It's our job as suppliers. So what we decided to do is to start putting a lot more energy into our media, which is, it's in my wheelhouse. No problem. I'm excited to do it. So we started just this year, actually, at the Boston Seafood Expo. We soft launched the new media arm of our company. I'm currently working on a educational documentary series that I'm hoping to get off the ground that is going to give consumers more of this information. But I think that the thing is that we have to do it in a way where people want to pay attention, where it's something that's fun, that they want to engage in, because nobody just wants to read some boring website or, look at how many times people are hit every single day with marketing images, with entertainment images, videos, GIFs, whatever, Twitter, feed, anything on social media. It's just relentless. It's everywhere you go. So you've got to win that attention. And so for us, I think really the challenge is being entertaining and delivering that, being to the point, and then putting it in enough places where the customer can't necessarily avoid getting that information. So we've kicked around a bunch of ideas. It could be as simple as the server saying, that's serving your plate, offering you a sustainably line-caught fish, or it could be, on the back of their receipt, or it could be a combination of that, a TV show, a social media feed, information cards, all sorts of different things. But, I think that we haven't obviously figured it out yet, or we'd probably be a multi-billion-dollar company. But that's the challenge. And, and I think especially in a dinosaur industry like the seafood industry, it's imperative with the amount of overfishing and the declining fish stocks that we have out in the wild that we do that now. So it's something we're working on.
Yeah, no, I think that's this idea of education and what do you trust, and Alina, you joked about fake news, whatever, but I think everyone here has probably been to Natural Products Expo or fancy food or things like that, and you look at the labels, the brands and the labels and the naming conventions, which change every year, right? Or the nutritional fact panel, which keeps on changing to make it easier, but it's changing. There's a lot of politics around what people are saying and why, and then who do you trust, and then you get the lies in the seafood industry or in other places.
One other thing I'll throw into that too is that, and I think if anybody here is in tech and wants to create this service, it would be tremendously useful to consumers and companies like me. We need some sort of easy rating system. Maybe it's on Yelp or Seamless or on every single delivery technology right? That's going to say like, hey, we've rated this company's sourcing and you can feel good about, sourcing from here. Or maybe it's a graded guide or something like that, because, again, like the bigger brands, they're under scrutiny to do the right thing. It's all these small brands. It's like you could say whatever you want. I don't want to tell you guys what you've probably been eating when you go into some of these, chains. I don't want to scare you away from eating seafood because that's not the answer either, but there needs to be some sort of accountability. Somebody needs to, be out there policing people. Otherwise, just push them in the right direction and they'll get the message.
Is that kind of like Fujicate? Isn't there an app already like that?
I don't know. Is that
Fujicate?
Fujicate?
Yeah.
You guys know about this app?
I've never heard of
Yeah?
it.
I see a couple, yeah. No?
It might be something.
All right. Yeah, we'll look into it for
Cool.
sure.
We got tech folks here who can help make it happen for sure. So would love to see if anyone in the audience has any questions. I know you guys have probably come from the Food is Medicine panel or maybe the investment panel, but any questions out there for this group about everything from supply chain to sourcing to education? If not, I got more questions for these guys, but I want to hear from you guys. Let's go. All right.
So I've never had to prepare meals for 70 people, so I don't know. A kitchen, and then they get them freshly delivered to them. I don't make things in advance, and I mean, I might soak some cashews or some nuts or some oats overnight or my grains. But as far as like food, I'm a bit of a chef snob. I like to know that I made it that day and they got it that day, and it's, by the time they get it, it's pretty much warm, sometimes still hot. So, I mean, it's just my own integrity and quality of how I feel that food should be delivered and people should consume it. I'm not a big fan of the microwave, so most of my food doesn't even need to go in the microwave. So if I'm promoting health, that's going to be in every aspect, from down to the ingredients and to how you have to warm it up. And if I'm giving you a meal that is cold and you have to warm it up in a microwave, how healthy is that really when you're just nuking it with some radiation? So my job is a little different. So I'm not a consumer-based business. I'm solely for, at the time, a NFL team. So it was different in the beginning to how things transpired to be. In the beginning, it was a lot of choice making. But my clients are so much different than anyone in the room. These are guys that have money, that just want to work, they want to feel good, they want the food to taste good. They don't really want that many choices, and when I gave them a lot of choices, I wasn't getting any answers, and I was like, all right, dealer's choice. I'm just gonna give you what you want, like just whatever I want, and it just wasn't working, and so it ended up transpiring to, I just make whatever I make, and they were happy with that, because they started to become instead of a plant-based fan, they became a Chef Charity Morgan fan. So it was like, what am I gonna get today? Pop up the container. Ooh, sweet potato enchiladas. So every day it was something different. So it's kind of hard for me to answer that question on a consumer base versus like who I cook for, which is NFL players and celebrities. So I just wanna make sure I'm answering the question properly.
Yeah,
Okay,
maybe
thank you.
just to extend that though, I'd love to think about, you talked about Instagram, so you sort of have two sides of your life, right? So there's this very bespoke sort of, small market, and then there's how do you educate the world, which ultimately is inspiring people to cook more plant-based or to bring that into their diets, right?
Right, just showing everyone their favorites. I didn't think that this post was gonna take off like it did on Saturday. I made a caprese salad, guys. I didn't make a truffle.
Wow, I could actually make that. Wow, nice.
Right.
All right.
It was a caprese salad, tomatoes, a plant-based mozzarella, and a balsamic reduction. And what I've come to learn is that people don't want that super gourmet whipped truffle tartine anymore. They don't want that. People want food that looks feels, tastes, and smells like something that they've always ate. It's more of that area of just nostalgic. It has to be something that they really understand. So that's why something so simple can just become so big by just swapping out a dairy cheese for a plant-based cheese.
Do you think that's why, like, so at the NRA this past weekend, tons of plant-based products there, right? And I went into that seeing some people that had sent through their ads, once you sign up and you've got your badge, you get these, marketing messages from some companies, and they were like, oh, it's like a plant-based chicken nugget. And my initial reaction was like, why does it need to be a chicken nugget? Why can't it just be a plant-based whatever? But then, I went there and I tried the plant-based chicken nugget, and I was like,
It was good.
pretty good chicken nugget.
Because if you can get the simple things down,
Yeah.
then, people, that's what they want.
Right.
You don't, when you do your cheat meal on Friday or Saturday, you're gonna go for the chicken nuggets. You're gonna eat the more junk foody type things. So if the market actually caters to that, then you're more susceptible to eat that stuff than something else.
But see, I would caution against that, personally, because, I gear toward healing food. So when I look at the fake meats, we've all seen the new report on the Impossible Burger, right? How dangerous it is. So when you look at the fake foods, at the, the processed vegan cheeses, the processed vegan meats, the sausages, the everything, they're contributing to disease. They're not contributing to health. So if we're choosing plant-based lifestyle for health, which is what it's supposed to be for, and what, normally would contribute to this, why would you be eating fake cheeses and fake meats? Because then you're just swapping one bad thing for another bad thing. So I would caution against that.
And can yeah, please. No, I think it's a divisive and interesting subject, because I think that there's also another reasoning behind it. Because I had the same question, right? Or similar question. And, but the thing is that I don't remember the statistic, but to raise a cow is like 80 gallons of water, something crazy per year, whatever it is. And, a plant was one tiny little fraction of that amount, right? So in terms of the Earth's resources, there's an argument to be made for the fact that, maybe some of these things aren't healthy, but at least if they're using less of our resources, is that and contributing to less methane in the environment and global warming and all that stuff? Is there some consideration for, something that's making an improvement even if it's not healthier?
Depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, if you look at the health of the population and the health of the society and contributing to that, yes, you might resolve one social issue and, make a better world by, eliminating some of the methane gases associated with raising cattle. But on the other hand, you're contributing to to another industry that is pouring chemicals into creating something that looks like something you're trying to substitute. And that was the issue that when I was at the Expo West this year, I actually was very disappointed because there is multitude of plant-based options, but they're all loaded with sugar, they're all loaded with fats, they're all loaded with fake things. And I am fearing that we're going back into the problem that we created in the 70s with trying to create chemically laden products. So before they were, animal protein based, and now they're plant based, and that's because that's the trendy word. So let's just create all of these products that that people are gonna like because they're tasty, but they're not contributing to our well-being.
Got it. Sorry, we had one patient question in the back. If
No, I think the panel is starting to get to whoever my question is. I thought the innovation in this arena should be to mimic nature.
There you go.
It's already engineered foods that we want to eat. And if the innovation is delivery, if it's sustainability, nature is sustainable. It takes care of it. So to deliver food that perhaps you wouldn't even feed your own children, or would you feed your own children with that same food? So what I haven't heard from, and maybe not everybody there, but I would hope that quality of what you're doing with regards to nutritious food, or when you use sort of qualitative words like quality or healthy, or what does that mean, right? And so my question is, from a biomimicry perspective, from a nature perspective, what are your groups doing in trying to deliver really nutritious food so you don't have to get the supplements, so you don't have the substitutes? What are your firms doing to do that?
Well, in my soups, for example, and that's, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is it's a combination, it's specific combinations of spices, herbs, vegetables, legumes, and mushrooms, and different ones. So not every soup has a legume, which would give you a protein. A lot of vegetables have proteins. And so depending on what it is you're trying to target, of course, all of the soups are geared toward gut health and brain health, because they create that balance. And that's the key. That's the first step. I always tell my clients that the first step in healing is healing your gut. Once your gut is healed, you can worry about maintaining it, and you can worry about targeting some of the other areas, because we could all use more energy. We could all use more, calm in our life. We can all use so many different things, but number one thing is healing your gut. So in order to do that, you have to create a product that, and that's why soups are so good for that, because soups are, the way I make soups, all of the ingredients are layered, and I never boil my soup. So when you look up the definition of soup, for example, in the dictionary, you will see that it's a bunch of substandard vegetables. Funny enough, that's what they are classified, boiled with stock and blended. That is not the soup that I create. So my soups have medicinal qualities to them, and to provide that nourishment, that quality, that integrity that you're talking about, because that's where we need to be. And because, if a child has taken antibiotic when they have an ear infection, immediately their gut is already ruined. So how do we heal that? And that just compounds. By the time you're an adult, you have issues. And that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think we need, I know we need to wrap this up, but just to kind of, pull that together, because I've seen this over the past few years where we've got technology that's helping us, move things more quickly, but also, bring local things to more people more readily, kind of get the right products, the right food into the right people's hands and mouths when they need them. To me, that's where there's so much opportunity. I know there's going to be another panel in this room in a couple minutes, but I think that I and maybe my fellow panelists, we can always go to the go outside the room if there's follow-up questions, and hopefully we can come back next year and continue the conversation about how all of this has evolved over the past year. So anyway, I want to just thank everyone for your participation here, and thank you guys for your questions. And would love to again talk more in the back.